A newborn baby changes everything for everyone. Find out the latest advice for parents right now on keeping kids healthy. Hi, I'm Dr. Winnie King in the lobby of the Children's Hospital at Montefiore, so you may hear a lot of noise in the background. You know, it's a good thing newborns don't seem to mind much background noise because we have quite a few of them here with us today. Let's meet baby Javon. He's 10 weeks old and his mom Makita. And then we have baby Rakesh, who is 7 weeks old, and his mom Geeta. And of course we have baby Cecilia. She is 11 weeks old and her mom Danielle. And Makita, let's start with you. How are you finding mommyhood so far?
I am loving every minute of it, but it's the toughest job I've ever had because I've never been more concerned about making sure I'm doing everything correctly.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. It's a full-time job, isn't it? You know, we've got a lot of information coming up about this new job of yours, including sleep and breastfeeding. But let's start with your baby's health. Pediatrician Stephen Sheloff is the editor-in-chief of the American Academy of Pediatrics book, Caring for Your Baby and Your Child. And Stephen, you know, the first question most parents have is how soon after the baby gets out of the hospital should they come back to the doctor for a visit? Most parents would say 5 minutes, right?
Right, well that's what it feels like. Actually, anywhere from 2 days to sort of 10 days, but it's very pediatrician parent dependent. If it's a brand new mom and baby, they want to get there a little sooner, and the pediatrician will too. But if it's a comfortable third baby and mom's okay, then 10 days or so is a good range to consider.
Yeah, and just a good idea to just teach mom to sort of watch the baby and see what's going on.
Absolutely,
with the baby.
that's the key, getting mom comfortable with watching the baby.
Yeah, Makita, and by the way, we have somebody that's wanting to be a part of this show in a major way, and that's okay. He's just a little hungry, so mommy's going to give Rakesh a little something to drink while we talk. Makita, you were wondering about watching your baby closely, right?
Absolutely. I watch him like a hawk. When he's awake, I'm watching him. When he's sleeping, I'm like, how do I know everything's okay?
Well, you know, it's always a question, especially for your first baby, but you want to be sure, is the baby eating well? Is there having bowel movements, urinating diapers every 4 to 6 times a day, moving all arms and legs equally, maybe a little blue at times when cold, but really the rest of the time pink. Those are some of the things you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, one of the concerns that we have with newborns is jaundice.
Right.
You know, and let's talk about what is jaundice and why is it so important?
Well, jaundice is when the red cells inside of the baby's circulation break down, and that's normal. It releases something that becomes bilirubin that gets yellow in the skin and sometimes even in the eyes. But it's important that that level not get too high. Most kids, it never gets too high, but the important thing is if it is too high, then pediatricians need to be contacted.
So parents should just be looking for yellowing of the skin?
Right, yellowing the skin or yellowing of the eyes for sure. Call your pediatrician. He may want to see the baby, probably will, and may want to put the baby under something we call the Billy lights, which everyone knows about. That keeps the bilirubin below a certain number, above which it could get dangerous if it's very high.
But what about vomiting? I mean, this is something that if you're a new parent, you get real up close and personal with vomiting and spitting up. What's the difference between the two?
Well, spitting up is just a little bit of food coming out on the mouth, and certainly on you as the parent. That's why you wear things to protect yourself. Vomiting is just more forceful, and that's important to distinguish because sometimes babies can get a little dehydrated if there's a lot of vomiting, and it may tell the pediatrician something else, and you want to let the pediatrician know if that's the case.
And what about the crying? I mean, it's normal for babies to cry, but persistent crying, you know, we talk about colic. What is that?
Well, colic is defined as excessive, very fretful crying for like 3 hours a day, up till 3 months of age, and 3 to 4 days a week. I mean, it is enough to drive a parent crazy, for sure. And that's an extreme of crying, but sometimes does happen in babies.
It's important, though, despite all of the frustration of having a colicky baby, that you not shake the baby.
The thing to do is rock, console, cuddle, swaddle, make the baby feel like the baby was still inside. Don't shake the baby. We have a big campaign called Don't Shake Your Baby, because there can be dangerous things happen if you do shake the baby.
You know, most parents, when children grow up, they describe their children by, oh yeah, that was the colicky one.
Right.
That was the one that wasn't. It's a big
Exactly.
deal. What about fever?
Right. Well, fever is not normal in the first couple of months of life, and you do want to be careful. Fever is defined as something above a 100.6. That's not 106, 100.6. If that were to be the case, you do want to call your pediatrician, because your pediatrician will want to sort of maybe see the baby, certainly if it's above that, because under age 2 months of life, fever can mean something serious. So it's important you check in.
And there's so many devices out now for measuring temperature.
Right.
How do you want babies' temperature?
Digital rectal thermometers are the preferred way by the Academy. It gives you a nice reading. It's quite accurate. You don't want to use the things on the forehead or oral thermometers for sure. And we're trying to do away with all mercury thermometers.
Well, Gita, you have a really good question, I know, for Dr. Shaloff about when do you take the baby out? When is it okay, right?
Basically, yeah, that's it. I'm wondering, when is it safe to take the baby out of the house?
Well, my first answer, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And crowds are also a concern.
My first answer is always, you brought the baby home from the hospital, so it's really okay to go outside. But you want to be sure in moderate temperatures. You don't want a baby in a very cold environment or very, very hot. But clothed appropriately for a moderate temperature. I recommend not having crowds around the baby for a couple of months. And that's just because you don't want a baby sort of being exposed to the kind of illnesses that crowds of people might have.
Well, you know, to be able to take care of your baby, you have to be healthy. Dr. Wendy Wilcox delivers babies, and she doesn't even have any bags under her eyes. I'm amazed by that. Fabulous.
Thank
You know, Wendy, what are some of the worrying signs that you have for mom's health?
Right. Well, first of all, it's normal to come home from the hospital with perhaps a little bit of bleeding or a little bit of pain, but certainly if the bleeding is increasing to the point of clots or if your pain is increasing, that's something that you'd want to let your obstetrician know. Also, if you develop a temperature, anything above 100.4, a headache that doesn't resolve with pain medication, and or any lightheadedness or dizziness, you'd like to give your obstetrician a call.
Now, both Makita and Gita had C-sections.
Yes.
Are there some specific issues about C-sections that we need to talk about?
There are. Generally, women who've had a C-section will come home with a little bit stronger pain medication. You may have a little bit longer recovery time. You really want to avoid lifting any heavy objects. Certainly anything heavier than your baby, you don't really want to lift for about the first week or two. Also, you may need to find a different position for breastfeeding your baby. You don't really want to put the baby on the C-section incision.
Yeah. And breastfeeding can actually be a little bit delayed?
Yes.
In the section?
Yes. The anesthesia can delay the milk from coming in, but generally breastfeeding is initiated before mom leaves the hospital.
And what about the mental health of the mom?
Very important. Up to about a half of all new moms may experience postpartum blues, feeling agitated, irritated, sad, maybe tearful, crying, maybe not being able to eat or sleep normally. And it's important to know that it's normal not to feel guilty about it, not to worry that these aren't the feelings you're supposed to have. It's very normal to have these feelings. Usually they present about the first week after delivery, and they'll usually go away on their own. If these feelings don't go away, though, mom should really let somebody know, someone close to her, and also call her obstetrician.
Yeah, and that's the person to call, because you know, you
Yes.
feel like it's over. I'm done with the obstetrician now. Who do I talk to?
Right. No, it's very important to keep in close contact with your doctor. And certainly if mom feels like she's either going to harm herself or her baby, it's very important to let someone know and call 911 if that's really a threat.
And then, of course, there's sleep. What's a typical night for a newborn? Well, here's one insider's view.
Okay, it's 2:30 and I'm turning the camera off because I can't really feed her and leave the camera. It's just gonna go on for a while. Now it's 3 o'clock in the morning and she's not sleeping. She's done eating, but now she's wide awake. It's 3:30 and somebody is still not sleeping. So we continue the rocking. Yeah. A burp, please. Well, I burped. Now I'm crossing my fingers that she stays asleep. All right, bye-bye. See you in 3 hours.
There are times when you're more tired than others, but you just keep going.
Thanks to Eileen Braun and her daughter Simca for that. And I'm sure those scenes look familiar to all of you, right? Been there, done that. Makita, how's your baby sleeping?
Javon is actually waking up every 2.5 hours, so I joke that he's my new clock. And it's fine during the day, but it's really difficult in the middle of the night when it's 2:30 in the morning. He eats and then he's looking at me like, now what? Yeah.
Well, Danielle, you found that it was a lot easier with Cecilia than you thought it was going to be. Do you have any advice for Makita?
Yeah, in the beginning it was definitely tough, and she had her her days and nights confused. So basically we had to put her on a pretty rigid schedule and wake her up and keep her awake more during the day, and then she would start sleeping at night. We also discovered the sleep positioning blocks that we put in her crib so she could sleep on her side, because you're not supposed to put them on their stomachs, and the side was the preferred position for her.
And she's doing so well. I mean, is she sleeping now?
She is sleeping now, which I really would prefer.
You want to wake her up, right? Because you're going to pay for this in a few hours, right? Stephen, how much should newborns be sleeping?
Well, newborns sleep actually 14 to 16 hours a day. The problem is it's not all together, see, as Kelly was saying. So there are going to be a 2, 3, 4 hour stretches and then wake up to be fed and held and rocked. So that's the problem. And so it's important to sort of realize that's the sequence for at least a month or so.
Now, Gita, you wanted to ask a question about where the baby should be sleeping.
Sure. Basically, when is it, at what stage should the baby move into its own room, and, from sleeping perhaps in the bassinet to a crib?
Well, first we want to remind people about the Back to Sleep campaign from the Academy of Pediatrics. That's crucial that we put babies on their backs, or in your case, for instance, on the side in the first several months. That has reduced the incidence of sudden infant death syndrome tremendously. So that's the first thing. The second is, in a bassinet next to you in the room, in your bedroom, is great for a couple of months. But after a couple of months, they sort of outgrow that. They sort of hit the top and the bottom. So what I often recommend is in a crib, also nearby, and maybe at 4 to 5 months in an adjoining room. But in that case, maybe with one of those little microphone type things so you can hear the baby if the baby wakes up.
Are there any other sleep safety issues that parents should be aware of?
Remember that in addition to putting them on their back or side, not to have fluffy things in the bed that the baby could smother in. That means no blankets, no pillows, no other things that the baby could really catch in their mouth. That together with the back to sleep makes for the perfect solution in the first 4 months of life.
Now, Wendy, mom's rest is also very, very important.
Very important.
What can she do to get enough rest?
Enlist all of the help you can, okay? Certainly, when the baby sleeps, mom should try to take a nap, leave the dishes for later, don't try to clean up. I was serious about enlisting all the help you can. Get a friend, a neighbor, a family member, maybe to watch the baby for a few hours. In the middle of the night, if mom is bottle feeding, perhaps dad could get up and give that early morning bottle. And if mom is exclusively breastfeeding, really to have dad go get the baby, bring the baby to mom, bring you something to drink, some pillows to prop you up, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, participate.
Exactly.
You guys look really, really good, all three of you, but are you tired?
I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Tired, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, one way to get through this difficult time is to talk to other new moms. Here's a look at one new moms group.
Every week, Dr. Barry Stein hosts a free-form meeting for moms with new babies.
What am I supposed to do? She starts crying and I ignore it.
Of course, questions about sleep dominate the conversation.
He's not comfortable in the crib. The crib seems to be too big for him.
She won't nap now without being in someone's arms.
You may end up needing to train her to nap the same way.
The same way you would train her to
For
sleep.
Yeah.
But for the moms, the chance to bond with each other is just as important as the doctor's advice.
You develop friendships, and that's not only wonderful as a new mom because you get to talk about what everyone's going through, but it's also so great for my new little life here, Henry, because he gets to be with other babies that are the same age.
Now, have any of you guys joined any support groups, any parenting support groups?
I haven't joined an official group, but I'm really lucky because my friend and neighbor down the hall in our apartment building had a baby 4 weeks after I did, so we have our own little group, and we get together every day and go for walks and do errands, and on days when we can't get out, when it's too cold, we'll go to each other's apartments just to have a change of scenery. And
it's really important, especially when it's cold, in the wintertime, to have somebody that you can sort of connect with. Now coming up in a few minutes, we're going to do tubby time. Teresa over there, she's got her ducks all lined up in a row. She's going to show us the best way to bathe a baby. But first, let's talk about feeding your baby. If you're using formula in bottles, be sure to sterilize everything and talk to your pediatrician about feeding schedules. But as you may know, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends breastfeeding if possible. Now, despite how natural breastfeeding is, it's not always so easy. In fact, a lot of moms experience pain from sore nipples when they start. But don't give up, because lactation consultant Beverly Solo tells us learning the right technique can get rid of the pain.
Pain is in breastfeeding is an indication that something is not right. Now, it's not just if it's painful you're doing something wrong, because this is learned and you're not an expert in the beginning and you have to figure it out. But if a baby is latched on well and sucking properly, it should not be painful.
So, Beverly teaches moms and babies the proper breastfeeding techniques.
An important thing to know about any baby's mouth is that it needs to be open really wide, maybe wider than that, to latch on well.
And once baby opens wide, Beverly uses a diagram to show good latch.
And this is a bit counterintuitive because if the baby is in the right place to latch on well, it actually looks like the mother's nipple is going to go up the baby's nose. You would think that you would start with the mouth centered, but really you want to touch the lower lip about an inch from the tip of the nipple so that the nipple just clears the top lip.
I wish that I had known you when she was 3 weeks old because we were nursing and it was really painful.
If moms are comfortable nursing, they're more likely to stick with it, and that has health benefits for babies.
It's perfect nutrition at a time when perfect nutrition is really important.
So Beverly, you were coaching these moms at a New York City store called the Upper Breast Side. How cute is that? It's nice to maintain a little sense of humor in all of this, you know.
Absolutely.
I know that new moms start nursing right in the hospital when they choose to breastfeed, as soon as their babies are born, but when does mom's milk actually come in?
The mature milk typically comes in anywhere from day 2 to day 5, sometimes longer, but for most people early on. And before the mature milk comes in, there's colostrum in the breast, and that's a very concentrated first milk that is usually enough for most babies, and it's chock full of antibodies.
Yeah, it's good stuff. We want the babies to get that. And speaking of good stuff, I have to comment that Rakesh is busily breastfeeding with Gita right now. That's why he's so quiet. He was talking quite a bit earlier, but now he's breastfeeding and very, very comfortable. How do you know when your milk is in?
Most women find that the breasts fill, get denser and heavier. Hopefully they don't get painfully engorged. Mm-hmm. Some women do experience that. But the breasts fill up and there's a larger volume of milk, and the milk usually gets whiter in color.
Yeah, it's very important for the baby to get enough to eat. I mean, that's the concern moms always have, you know, is my baby getting enough? How do you know if your baby's getting enough food?
Well, there are a number of things to observe, and it's important to look at all of them, at the whole picture. Babies need to feed frequently enough, usually at least 8 times a day. They need to feed effectively with frequent swallowing, not just sucking. They need to appear satisfied after breastfeeding and not be looking for something else to suck on. Usually the breast softens. There are lots of pees and poops, and finally weight gain, which is something the pediatrician would do.
Parents will often, especially new moms, start counting. You know, they want to know, like, how many diapers should be wet? How much poop should I be looking for? Is there a guideline for that?
Well, it increases with every day after birth, and usually in terms of wet diapers, 1 more than the number of days old. So on day 2, 3 wet diapers, and so on.
Up to?
Usually around 6, sometimes more.
Yeah.
A day.
Stephen, one of the concerns that I've seen new moms come to me with is my baby's dehydrated.
Right.
You know, right. How do we know when a baby's
Well,
dehydrated?
the first thing you'll see is the baby will have fewer wet diapers, so the baby is making less urine. The second thing you may see is that the baby may have lost some weight if you're weighing the baby, and then the eyes may be fallen back or a little sunken, and the fontanelle, the soft spot up there, will be a little depressed. All those, and the mucous membranes in the mouth will be a little dry. Those are indications the baby is getting a little dehydrated.
And if you see any of those kinds of signs in your newborn, what should you do?
Really important to talk to your pediatrician. The pediatrician will tell you about giving some extra fluids, electrolyte solution we call it, but probably will see the baby because there's usually a reason why that's taken place, and they'll want to know why that is taking place.
A big concern moms have also, Beverly, is the production of milk, you know, making enough milk for the baby. Is there anything they can do to increase production of milk?
Nurse early and often, and the more milk that's taken out of the breast, the more milk the breasts make. And usually that is driven by the baby if the baby's feeding well, so early and often.
What about what mom should be eating? Are there any special rules for mom's nutrition when she's breastfeeding?
good nutrition for the mother. Usually breast milk is going to be high quality no matter what the mother eats, but the mother needs to eat a good balanced diet for her own health.
Yeah, and eat consistently and not get too run down, because you can get run down really, really easy. And Wendy, sometimes moms get an infection in their breast called mastitis.
Right.
Talk to us about what that is and what do we do about it?
Mastitis is an infection in the breast. Usually it's characterized by the breast being more firm than usual, more tender, and mom may also have a fever. The mom really does need to call her OB/GYN because that needs to be treated, usually with antibiotics. She can breastfeed during the treatment.
And that, I think, throws a lot of women. It's like, I have an infection in my breast. Why would I let my baby breastfeed? Won't they get the infection too?
No, and actually the antibiotics that we prescribe are safe to take during breastfeeding also. But really, mom will pass on the antibodies to the baby and the baby will be fine.
What about pumping the breast? Is that something that women should routinely do just to get more milk or to store?
Not routinely. I recommend that women pump if their babies are not getting enough at the breast, or if they do need to increase their milk supply and the baby isn't doing that for them.
Do any of you guys pump? All of you do? And do you find it particularly uncomfortable? A lot of women have complained about pumping, that it's uncomfortable.
At first, I think, it takes some getting used to. It's like if you put the pump on wrong or something, it's definitely painful.
And so you store the milk, and then you have plenty if you need others. Yeah.
For later.
Well, look how quiet he is now. Everybody is so quiet and so well rested. Very, very quiet. We love this, right? This is perfect. But I guarantee you guys will pay for this tonight. That's the only problem. Sometimes insurance covers breast pumps or lactation consultants, so check with your provider. I want to thank so much to all of you for being here, Beverly, Stephen, and Wendy, for being here and sharing all of your knowledge about this. Okay, now I see our moms are going down to join Nurse Teresa Conti to learn the safest way to give an infant a bath. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Okay, so we start at the head, right?
Yes, we start at the head. First, before you even start, you want to prepare everything. Okay. Have it all ready for you so you don't have to walk away and ever leave the baby, because you never ever leave the baby in the tub. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold on to this very good boy with my left hand. Take my washcloth, use one end of the washcloth with one eye, flip your washcloth, other eye, do the face. You want to do clean to dirty. Okay. So the face, neck, body, legs, diaper area last. Okay? And then when you're done, you can take him out, and then you can shampoo the hair.
Now, a lot of babies get what we call cradle cap. Right. How do you deal with that?
Well, there are a couple of ways. You can discuss it with your pediatrician. Some pediatricians recommend using a dandruff shampoo once a week. Others say a little bit of baby oil and combing it out helps.
So it's just a good idea to just check with a pediatrician.
Because they have different remedies.
Now, what about the water? Should the water be cool, tepid, warm? How do you judge?
It should be warm because you're submerging the baby. The best way to test is using your elbow. Dip your elbow in. Your hands tend to be a little bit more tolerant to heat than your arms. Your arms are a little more sensitive. And if it feels, when you put in, that you can feel the water a little warm, that's a good temperature.
Okay, and no bubbles?
No. Okay. And soap also is optional. Babies really don't get dirty, so you can use, soap. Don't ever use soap on the face, though.
Okay, now what about lotions and powders?
That's all also, it makes them smell good. It's really not necessary. Babies have beautiful soft skin. It'll stay that way without lotion. Powder is also optional. You never take it and shake on the baby. Put a little in your hand and then put it in the diaper area.
And when it comes to powders, do they need to be the commercially made powders? A lot of old grandmoms use that old cornstarch.
Right, cornstarch is good and it usually doesn't have perfume. It's okay. As long as you do the same thing. Put it in your hand and don't shake directly on the baby. You don't want the baby
not
to
salting the baby.
Exactly. You don't want the baby to breathe it in, really.
Well, moms, you guys have beautiful babies, but for moms watching, do you have like a gem, a nugget of wisdom that you'd like to pass on?
When I was home the first week alone, I made little goals for myself to go outside every day, to just get myself out, and tasks that seemed really daunting before I did them, if I made myself repeat them every day, seemed much more doable.
Yeah, just little steps at a time. What about you, Gita?
I would say my major thing was once I had him, I sort of thought I could keep the same pace. that I had before, and I would say sleep when the baby sleeps. That's the main thing. Don't worry about the friends and family who want to come over.
Right.
Don't worry about anything. Sleep when he sleeps, because you can wear out very quickly.
Well, and there could be a lot of pressure too when you have a newborn baby. Everybody wants to come and see the baby, and they want you to have the baby up, and they want to talk, and it can literally wear you out. So it's okay to just say, no, need a break.
Screen the calls.
Yeah, stop, no more. And what about you, Makita?
I would agree. Sleep when the baby sleeps. New babies need their sleep, but so do new moms. And I'd also say trust yourself, because there's nothing like that maternal instinct.
That's right. Yeah, that's so important. And I know that comes with experience, but all of your babies are so beautiful, and I hope that they grow healthy and strong. You know, for more resources, check out the AAP.org organization, which is the American Academy of Pediatrics. It's their website, or lalecheleague.org. This is the site for La Leche League International, which has breastfeeding information for you, or you can call them at 1-800-LA-LECHE. Thanks so much for all of you being here and sharing all of your beautiful babies with us, and thanks so much for the tips on bathing babies. Very important. And we will see you next time on Keeping Kids Healthy.